Hi everyone, it's Sam from SiteMate. Permits are authorizing documents containing approvals to proceed with usually hazardous types of work. And in this video, we're going to look at how we can track permits using a controlled workflow inside of Dashpivot with automatic notifications at each stage of the approvals. And so Dashpivot supports all kinds of permits, whether it's hot works, working at heights, confined space, out of hours. We support all different kinds of permits. And in this video, we're going to look specifically at an excavation permit. So you can see here that we've already created a template for this excavation permit. It's set up as a workflow, and we know that because you can see that we've got several columns on the screen. And the idea with the workflow is that if we add a new permit, that permit is first going to be stored in the very first column of the workflow. And then the goal is to move it from the leftmost column to the rightmost column. And the way that we do this is by signing it off or approving it using a special type of signature field, which I'll show you in just a moment, called an approval signature. And that will move it from the first column to the second, and then there'll be another approval signature to move it from the second to the third to the fourth, and so on. And the way that this particular workflow has been designed is that the permit creator is the person who should sign off in the first column, then the project manager signs it off, and then you'll have all your active permits sitting in this column, and someone can then sign it off and close it out and move it to this archived column. So let's work through an example. So let's add a new permit. And when we create a new form, it's going to come up with our logo up the top and information about what project we're working on. We have the name of the document, and then everything below that is the actual fields for this particular permit. And I'll show you how you can change these fields later on in this video. But you can see we've got pretty standard stuff. So we've got the permit period. So we could select today and then pick a date in about a month's time if this is 30 days. We've actually got an expiry date field here too. And that's actually quite handy because as soon as we select the date, it actually tells us that this permit expires in 30 days. And let's say we opened up this form tomorrow, it would say expires in 29 days. So it's pretty smart. It's going to tell us exactly how long we have until this permit expires. We have a text field for scope of works, and obviously, like any form, we just sort of work our way through it. A couple of things I want to point out. The first is that we can have required fields. So this means that we can't actually save the form or approve the form unless that particular field has been filled out. So because this one is required, I'm going to give it an answer. So let's just say that we have not done the identification of different types of services. So we're going to click no. And something magical happens. We get this message that tells us that we should not proceed, and that first we need to identify the depth and alignment of the known services. So this is actually a message that only comes up if we select no. If we select yes, then no message comes up. So there's a little prompt built in there, and that's using our conditional logic feature. I'll show you how we can use that a little bit later on, as well as how to modify the rest of the document. But just like any permit, we sort of work our way through. There's going to be a bunch of checks that we need to go through, make sure that everything is looking good. And then we're going to arrive at what we call an approval signature. Now, it's a special type of signature. What it does is it allows us to move this form from the column that this form is currently in to the next column. And you can see that it tells us this. So if we sign, it's going to move this to the next column. There's a couple of these. So we can see the first one is enabled, the second one is disabled, and then we have another one at the bottom which is also disabled. The reason that they're disabled is because we need to sign off these signatures in the correct order and thus work through our workflow the way that it's been designed. So it's a controlled process. We need to do things in the right way. But I want to show you that before we sign this, I just want to show you that if we save it without signing, that form is going to appear in the first column of our workflow. So this thing here, this is a form, this is our permit that we just filled out, and it's stored in Dashpivot. So other people could then come in and contribute to that document and access it. But if we want to make some modifications, complete it, and then progress it to the next column, we're going to go and have to sign it off. Now, I'm going to show you how we do that. It's pretty easy. But I also want to point out that when it moves to this column, the next step is for the project manager to review and approve the permit. Now, there is something awesome that we can do in Dashpivot, which is to automatically notify our project manager when the form moves into this column. And the way that we access the notification feature is to click this little eyeball icon here, and it's going to show us a list of all the people who have access to this particular project team folder. So we're just going to select whoever the project manager is. Let's say it's Ben. So select Ben's name. So when we sign this form, it's going to move into this column, and it's going to automatically send an email to Ben that says, hey Ben, there's an excavation permit sitting in the project manager approval column. So Ben can then click on the link and open the permit, both on the computer or in the app, sign it off, obviously review it as well, sign it off, and then it will move from his column and to the next one, and in this case it will become active. So let's go ahead and follow this process and see how it works. So let's reopen our permit that we made a minute ago, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to sign off this permit. So let's click sign. A couple of things are going to happen. So it's going to put our signature on there with the time and date. It's also going to lock any of the fields that we've filled out already above our signature. So you can see all of these checks. We can't make any changes anymore. We can't change the duration. We can't change the scope. All of that section of the form is considered to be complete. So if we want to make a change, we can. We just click this button here that says make changes, but it's going to remove our signature and move the form back to the start of our workflow. But let's assume that we've done everything right and we're happy with what we've done so far. What's happened now is that the next approval signature has been enabled. So we could go ahead and sign it, but let's say we're not the project manager, so it's not our job. So we're just going to save the form. And because it's been signed, we'll see now that it's moved into the second column of our workflow. And in this case, Ben will have received an email that says, hey Ben, come and sign this. He can open that up on his phone, tablet, or computer, review the content, sign it off, and move it to the active column. Now, I want to show you a couple of things that are quite useful in the app. We can basically mark up any drawings that we attach to our form. So I'm going to upload a PDF attachment now, just an example, and show you how this works on the iPad. So you can see it's just a simple PDF attachment, just a drawing. We're going to save that, and I'm also going to show you how we can get a bunch of people to sign onto this permit. So presumably there's multiple workers who need to also review the permit and acknowledge that they've read it and understand the contents of that permit. So now we're in the Dashpivot app, and you can see that we're in the template section. We need to go to the safety tab because that's where our excavation permit is, and you can see it's located here. So let's tap on that, and you can see the interface is pretty much the same as what we saw on the website. We've got all our different workflow columns, we've got the different headings, and we can see that the form that we created just a moment ago is sitting here and is ready for us. So let's tap on the form to open it up. And you can see this is the same content that we filled out online. So we've got all those same fields, all the same information. We can even see the signature that we signed off just before. And we've got the next section. So we've got section to sign off to approve if we need to move it to the next column. But what I wanted to show you was that assuming that this is an active permit that's ready to go, we might have a bunch of workers who need to sign on and sign off that they've understood the permit and understand the works that are being undertaken. So the way that we do that is by using what we call the Scan SiteMate ID field. And what this does is it opens up a QR code scanner from inside the Dashpivot app and allows us to scan the digital ID of anyone who has the SiteMate app installed on their phone or on their tablet. So the ID looks a little bit like this. I'll show you it a little bit bigger in just a moment. But what you can see here is that we have a QR code for our ID, and then we've got our name, signature, company, and photo here. So it's just a digital ID card that anyone can download for free on the App Store, both for Android and iOS devices. And what it means is that now let's assume that we're on site and we need to collect the signatures for this permit. All we have to do is click this scan button. It opens up our QR code scanner, and we can place our digital ID card in front of the scanner. So you can see here, it's a little bit bigger now. You can see the name, the company, the signature, the photo, and the QR code on the right-hand side. And if we put the QR code inside the square, basically the app will read it, and we get a little success message up the top that says that we've now scanned this person onto this permit. So if you've got 5 or 10 people who need to sign on, it's a much faster way just to go around scanning the IDs than to fill out everything manually on paper or passing the iPad around to sign manually. So it's super fast, super easy to do. So once we've collected all the signatures, we click Done, and you can see it's logged our details in the table. So it's got our name, the company, the signature, the date and time. We even collect the location of where that signature took place. If we want to add any new scans, we just click the scan button again. If there's someone that doesn't have an ID, it's okay. We can sign them on manually. All we have to do is type in their name, sign off, save, and then we can still collect those signatures. It's just going to take a little bit longer. So we always recommend using the SiteMate app where possible, because it is a free app and it's way faster and more hygienic. But then, you've always got that backup option if you need it. A couple other things to point out in the app. Before, you saw that we uploaded a drawing. So that's this PDF that we have down the bottom here. We can open this up and view it. So maybe there's some utility drawings, some service drawings, things like that. This is just a generic PDF. So you can see we've got all sorts of stuff going on here. We can zoom in and have a look. But if we want, we can actually mark this up as well. So if we click this little marker icon, you see that all the marking tools appear on this side. We can then tap the pen tool and we can start to draw on the PDF. So we can denote anything, we can draw. Basically we can mark it up, we can change the color, we can highlight things, we can add text, we can insert photos. We can do a lot of things just using the options that you see on the left-hand side here from inside the Dashpivot app. Once you finish marking up the PDF, just make sure that you click the Save button, and it will update and save those changes to the PDF. And then we just need to make sure that we save the changes that we've made to the form as well, so that any changes that we've made to this form or the PDFs that are attached are saved for everybody else to access at the same time. So we need to click Save, and you'll see that those changes will occur. So let's say that you signed on a bunch of workers, but they need their own copy of this permit. One way that you can do it is to email them a PDF copy of this permit. You can even do it from the inside the app. So just reopen the form, click this blue icon down the bottom, click the Send as PDF option, which is the top one, and then we can either add a new email in here, or we can send to someone that we've already emailed before. So here we are back on the Dashpivot website. And if we want to print off this permit as a hard copy, we can easily do that. So we just open up the form. There's a couple of options up the top here. The option that we want to look for is this Download PDF option. So if we click Download PDF, takes a second, and then we can open that up. Here we go, and it's going to come out looking pretty much the same as what we saw on the website. So we've got our details about the company and project up the top, the title of the document, and then all the fields that we filled out. You can see our signature down there as well, and the scan of the people who have signed on. And then below that, we also have our drawing. So over time, you're going to end up with several permits in your workflow. Couple last features to point out. You'll end up with something looking like this, where you've got several permits sitting in different columns, obviously at different stages in your workflow. This is great because it keeps everything organized. It's very easy to see what stage of your workflow process the forms are up to. But what's also useful is that we can toggle to what we call the register view, which automatically compiles our permit register. So you can see those 3 permits that we had are now organized into rows with columns for each of the fields that are actually on that form. So you can see that we've got columns for the scope and for the dates and for the different services that we've recorded and all the other details in here. So this is really easy. It makes it very fast to actually find certain things because we can use filters. So if we wanted to look for the permits relating to, I'm just going to say West Street as an example, we can apply a filter and now it only finds the forms where West Street was entered in the scope of works. We can also export from the register view as well. So let's say that we wanted to export multiple forms at once. We can make a bulk selection here. We can download as PDF, and we have a few options. The last thing to cover is how to edit this template. So if we go back to our original template that we were looking at, what we can do is to edit the fields that we saw on the permit when we were filling it out. The way to make some changes is to click the Edit Template button over here. And it's going to open up what we call the template editor. The way it works is on the left-hand side, we have a series of fields. So things like text inputs and date fields and yes/no fields and so on. And in the center of the screen, we can actually see all of the fields that have been added onto our template so far. So given that this is a permit template, you can see that we've got the permit period field, it's a date field. You can see we've got the permit expiry date. And you can see that all of these fields have sub options. So that's what we did here. So this is a date field, but we've selected the expiry date option. So that's why it gave us that little countdown. And so we can make some changes. We can just drag in additional fields if we want, put them where we need to. We can pick up existing ones and move them around a little bit. We can make them required. So we just hover on the field and make them required. What we did before was we had some conditional logic built into this question here, asking about whether the service locating has been completed. You can see that we've got a logic block here. So all we did was we hovered on the question, we clicked the Add Logic button. It adds this logic block beneath that field, and then we just set a condition and then what to show. So if the value equals no, in other words, if someone selects no when they're filling out this form, then we're going to show these fields. And in this case, it's just a pre-filled text field. And it's got some content here that tells us, do not proceed. You must first identify the depth and alignment of known services. So that's how we can get that conditional logic to kick in. It's pretty easy to make some changes to the templates. You can even adjust the number of columns in your workflow. So you can reduce the number of columns or increase the number of columns. You can change the names of them. You've got a lot of flexibility in Dashpivot to really tailor this workflow and the fields that you see on the form to your business needs. And once we've made any changes, we can click Save, and then it will update for anyone who's got the Dashpivot app installed on their phone or tablet or on the computer. The very next time that someone goes to add a new permit, it will follow that new format. So that's how you can use Dashpivot as a permit management system for all different types of permits. It's much more efficient than printing, scanning, and emailing permits between different people, having to print things out, draw on them, scan it in, all those types of things. It's much faster, especially with that scanning option to scan people's signatures onto the forms. And then you've got a single point of truth for all of your permits. So you just access them all online. You can still download a hard copy if you need to, but everything's available online for the whole team to access at any time. We have loads of free permit templates available as well. If you head to the template section in your account and click the Add Template button, there is an option to choose from the free public template library. Go in here and you can search through. We've got stacks of templates for the different types of permits. So feel free to have a browse. If you get stuck or have any questions, you can always reach our live chat team on the website just via this button down the bottom. That's also available inside the Dashpivot mobile app on phones and tablets. And if you're interested, please check out our tutorial section. There's stacks of other videos covering other use cases and other features that we have inside of Dashpivot. So I hope this video has been useful, and thanks for watching.